This is the intersection of Pine Street, also known as PA 413, and East Maple Avenue in the Langhorne Borough of Pennsylvania. Over the last few years, a construction project aimed at making Route 1 safer and more accessible for traffic has seemingly zeroed in on the portion of PA 413 that crosses over the interstate. While addressing safety issues on Route 1 is something almost unanimously agreed upon, a number of borough residents have begun to voice concerns over traffic congestion and the idea of uprooting the historical significance of the borough itself. The project, known as RC3, is specifically designed to reroute traffic from the interstate through a newly constructed cloverleaf off and on ramp near the Woods campus on PA 413. Prior to this currently proposed construction project, residents and travelers have been able to use a small service road attached to Bellevue Avenue to access Route 1. And thus, the majority of the borough residents' fears deal with the influx of traffic that will potentially be funneled through the borough from the interstate.
My name is Kathleen Horwath, and I'm elected councilperson in the borough of Langhorne. I've been elected since 1984, but I was council president secretary in 83. So I've been serving all those years. Well, there's the little hassle. I was always with them all along, even when this particular US 1 worked. Prior to that, I was working with them in detail on the I-95 connector. I was heavily involved with that. I was with the TMA. I was with the Chamber of Commerce, all the transportations. I've always been transportation for Langhorne Borough. And I was always informed. So 2014 was the last meeting that I ever heard that they were having a meeting on this project. Everything, of course, at PennDOT always gets put on hold based on what's going on. And we never knew there was a change. It never came across our desk that there was a change. And that's what's upsetting to the Langhorne Borough. There's a standard response that comes from the district engineer, and pretty much the standard response says, you know, no, this isn't an issue. It's not an issue. We're not going to do anything, blah, blah, blah. It's not going to destroy your town. It's not in your town. And then the maps and everything else show evidence that they're not telling the truth. You know, time flies quickly. I've been around and I've seen it. Time flies quickly. Our concern more is the traffic's backed up now.
Right.
It's just the design itself needs a whole lot more tweaking and needs local involvement. We are a pedestrian community. There's absolutely no doubt. We're probably the largest pedestrian community, at least in Eastern PA, except for some college towns. I believe, firmly believe in grassroots involvement and people getting involved and having a say and getting out there and making their thoughts known and standing up to the big guys. And that's what we have to do. And that's what we always have to do. When we don't get involved and don't get our message out, then bad things happen. And unfortunately, in this, we lost the media. We lost the print media. And this never would happen. That these meetings that occurred that changed the plan, whenever they were, you know, would have never occurred with if we hadn't lost the media. We would have known. We would, and a reporter would have called and say, "Hey, did you hear about this or that?" You know, or they would have reported, "Okay, October 1st, 8 members of so-and-so municipality voted to change this plan," you know, that we would have known. We're talking a good 8-9 months before we even know. We could have been involved working with them all along. And obviously, if they had a vote, they had to have been doing something prior to that, you know, to have a design and a vote. That meetings that we were never included in that whole 4-year span. So other than that, so then we immediately, Borough Council sent a unanimous opposition to the plan on June 9th, 2 days after we saw it. And then, you know, we waited for response. We got response from PennDOT, again, the same kind of responses that we get all the time. Finally, the borough did hire a traffic consultant to deal directly with PennDOT, and I think to offer some other suggestions. And that's where we're at. When we redid 413 in 2004, and a little after that, we put it on a road diet. It was 4 lanes coming around that horrible curve from Langhorne Manor. We ended up with a pedestrian fatality at the AME church. Beloved friend of all of us, Ernestine Johnson, and we convinced them to go on a road diet, and members of Safe Highway were PennDOT people then, and they helped us. They realized 4 lanes in a pedestrian neighborhood doesn't work because people are jockeying. Now, PennDOT is still saying, oh no, we will never have 4 lanes in Langhorne Borough because you are a National Historic District. We accept that. Thank you. We don't want 4 lanes, but we also don't want 4 lanes right outside of Langhorne Borough either.
Right.
Which obviously you're going to have if you're going to have a cloverleaf interchange. You're adding a lane immediately, and they might even in the future they had it designed for a 2-lane, interchange circle. It just doesn't work. I can only name 3 people that I have not had support from out of the whole borough. This is the first issue in all my time that I've ever seen all of the organizations and groups united in opposition to the interchange on 413. They've all been sending letters to PennDOT, to the governor, to everybody else. And that kind of pressure is helping because it's trickling down to the right people. They're pretty busy on the other sections. They still have to raise up every one of the bridges.
Yeah.
And they only got Bristol Road Bridge done, and they got Maple Avenue Bridge done at the other end. So now they've got to do the middle bridges, and it's at the Chamonix High School. That's turning into quite a huge situation as well. So you've got additional bridges that have to be raised. It took them almost a year for Bristol Road, so can't imagine how much time this is going to take. So I think they have time to look at the options. We're offering some really good suggestions that we just need them to punch into their traffic computers that really help you figure things out. It cost us a fortune to try and pay somebody to do that, and they have the equipment and the people involved. So I think that now, if they give us a second look, that's what we're asking for. We don't want 4 lanes near the borough, let alone at the borough. And they did move it back 275 feet away from the borough, where the 4 lanes would be. But that's still not our answer, not what we want. We don't want the intersection in the borough, which it currently largely is.
Right.
How does a person get to Feasterville without coming down the Maple Avenue and making a left turn? That's the only option you have. Only option. And that's backed up now. So even if they give us a turn arrow, how is all of West Middletown supposed to get to West Middletown? Or Feasterville or everywhere else?
The following pictures show alternative construction plans agreed on by the members of the Langhorne Borough Planning Commission. These images have been approved and sent through the appropriate channels. It is now up to those in charge of the project to analyze these notes and attempt to work them into the project.
Okay, James, yeah, so the RC3 part of the project has always been part of the bigger 6-mile Route 1 project. It's been part of the project since 1999, since PennDOT originally planned out in the project. So, and then, yeah, so it's all, like I said, so the second part of your question, yeah, it's always been part of the project. Yeah, the project started in PennDOT in the 90s, and then JMT was selected to design the project in 2001, and I started in 2000. So I started on this project as a lower level engineer in 2001. So I've been on this project for 21 years now.
This is what happens with these larger projects sometime, unfortunately, because of different challenges that the PMs run into. That the projects I started working on, and actually still in the process of delivering a a project on 322 that was started in the 70s. And I am really trying to conclude those projects because every project will have all kinds of opposition, support, and all those. We try to address as quickly as possible. For RCs, I actually started PennDOT, and that was my first project was LHB. And we delivered that project within, what was it, Ken, since I joined? Within a year or year and a half, LHB
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
started its construction. Then, of course, I got into other projects.
RC1 was 2018. RC.
So I took over about 2017.
Yeah.
It was in pretty advanced stage, but there were a lot of challenge, and we delivered 2018, and then Ken RC2.
RC2 was early 2021. It ended up being like January 2021.
And now for RC3, what we really, really wanted to do is get into acquisitions phase very quickly, because that takes a long.
The project itself is 2.6 miles long. So it actually is in Middletown Township, Langhorne Manor Borough, and Langhorne Borough. And actually, it's the way the math works out, it's mostly in Middletown Township and Langhorne Manor Borough. There's only like physically touches Langhorne Borough for about 5% of the area of the project. But we've been working with the municipalities for years now, and we started, once we really got back into design as the projects have evolved, in 2020, trying to meet regularly every 6 months with project stakeholders. So that's municipal officials, Bucks County Planning Commission, State Representative Ferry's office. Representative Ferry's been on multiple meetings now, Senator Tomlinson's office, and sort of having like 6-month updates as we can. Now, if there's no progress, we don't want to waste everybody's time by saying, well, we're still the same place we were 6 months ago. But having those meetings, and then in between, as people ask, we'll have meetings with them too. So we've had additional meetings with Langhorne Borough through Representative Ferry's office. We've corresponded back and forth numerous times with various entities along the corridor. We've been meeting slowly, working our way through the project stakeholders that are the property owners. So like last week, we met with Neshaminy High School because there's improvements down there. So we're constantly in some semblance of contact with almost everybody. And lately, from the Langhorne Borough's perspective, they hired a new traffic engineer, Safe Engineering. And talking to Councilman Murdoch, he asked JMT to meet with Safe Engineering and see if we could work through some of the issues and come up with a solution, knowing that not everybody is always going to be happy, especially with a project this size. But see if we can make improvements that address some of the comments and issues from the borough, and at the same time, meet the needs of the project that PennDOT wants to deliver, which is a safety improvement along Route 1 itself. Those concrete islands out there right next to the high-speed traffic is just not a safe situation. So that's sort of the way it's been evolving, and there's been a lot of back and forth, and some days there's just a lot of people. We've talked to, let's see how we posted a video to the website last year to get general public comment. Nothing super detailed, just to give them sort of a heads up of what the project was looking like at that phase and that time, and received comments. I think we received 91 comment responses back, and 40 of them asked for follow-up. So one of she's head of our right-of-way unit, but she's also in charge of sort of community relations on the project. She either called or emailed, mostly called, 40 of the residents who requested to be talked to, and had a sit-down conversation with them over the phone for however long they went to talk, answering questions. So we're constantly trying to keep those lines of communication open the best we can, and just try and address comments as we can, address people's concerns, explain to them, because sometimes just it's that down the grapevine thing where somebody says something, and by the time it gets to the person 10 people down, the message changes, and then things get out there and it's not quite the truth at the end. So there's widening for turn lanes at where the proposed interchange is, but then we want to get it right back down to its existing width, because we know going through the borough, it's a historic borough, historic district. We don't want to go in there. We don't want to mess with anything, because it's got its look, it's got its feel. That's the way they want it. If there's traffic issues in the borough that they need to address other ways, we corresponded with Representative Ferry's office to give them options of different funding programs that they can do through PennDOT to maybe address some of those congestion concerns. So we're doing the best we can. But yeah, it's early on, you establish what's called your area of potential effect. And you sort of map out where you think you're going to affect the area around the project. And then you have to look from an environmental standpoint and analyze if you're going to impact historic areas, or if there's potential for archaeology, or if there's hazardous waste. You have to look at noise. There's just a bunch of things. So once you establish that APE, you pretty much don't go beyond that. So you can't go messing and changing your project and growing it after the fact, because you just lose your environmental clearance then. You have to go back through the process. Because PennDOT doesn't choose the projects, the Bucks County Planning Commission and the Delaware River Valley DVRPC selects the projects based on needs, based on input from state reps and other entities. And then they list the projects and they decide which ones to be funded. And then they give them to PennDOT and say, hey, here's the project, and this is the project that we need to be done. So if something else is like a big picture thing, like if all of a sudden somebody wants a bypass instead of doing the design we have, that has to go back to the bigger planning commission and a whole other set of entities before it comes back to PennDOT. PennDOT doesn't just look at a map and go, we should fix this road and put an interchange right here. It's just not the way the process goes. There's
like a hierarchy, like a chain of command. Yeah.
There were some safety concerns expressed, right? And they are outside our project limit. But we wrote a detailed letter copying the Langhorne Borough on it, that there were some actions to be taken in order to get some funding source. We identified that if you want to do this sidewalk plan, flash sign display for road crossing and other things, because there were people expressing concern regarding crossing 413. We mentioned that this is outside the project, but here are the funding sources that you can now apply. Please start those process. So because our project is not happening, even if the current timeline holds, construction is not done until 2030. The safety of those people and their current concerns they need to be addressed now. And there are fundings to be pursued, and we detail those in our letter to them. And we are really hopeful that they are pursuing those opportunities that exist outside of this project.
Or
So right now, so the environmental part and preliminary engineering sort of flow together. Right now, it'll probably be later this fall, maybe towards the end of the year, that we would get through and get environmental clearance. And at that point, final design starts. And that's when right-of-way acquisition or property acquisition would start at that point in time. And that's when PennDOT and their acquisition team would reach out to impacted property owners and start that process. And that process can take 18 to 24 months until all of the property is acquired that is required for the project.
I mean, ultimately, most borough residents would probably want to have their concerns addressed fully, like by the fall.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and that's right now we just had a meeting on Wednesday with Langhorne Borough's traffic engineer. We took some stuff back. We have to talk to some people in PennDOT about some things. We're gonna do some additional analysis, hopefully meet with them again in the end of May, and then hopefully come to some resolution. So otherwise we're JMT personally sort of feels like we're wasting PennDOT's money, and we're wasting safe engineering, sort of wasting the borough's money at some point if we don't come to some resolution here. Because in the end, it's all dollars, and every hour spent is somebody's time and somebody's money somewhere. So.
After speaking with members from both sides of this project, it is clear that everyone seems to be doing all they can to reach a peaceful resolution. While we may not be able to see the entire truth as outside observers, at least it seems like communication is possible on some level. As a previous resident of the Langhorne Borough, it is my hope that this video may provide information for anyone curious about this project. Here's to a finalized product we can all agree on.